Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's town hall. My name is Talimwala Mugala. Today, our town hall is a very interesting one. As you may know, we are commemorating World Investor Week as a commission or as the capital market. And we are focusing on being a smart investor, avoiding fraud and scams, and just how you can protect yourself as an investor. So today's town hall is a very special one in that firstly, it's the last day of this month of October, which is a breast cancer awareness month. And here at the commission, the ladies are standing against the fight of breast cancer. That's why we're wearing a head wrap, which is a duku. So as you can see from my head, we're commemorating Dukutoba today, honoring the women and families that have been affected by breast cancer. Having said that, go straight into introducing our guest for today. Today, our town hall presentation is going to be made by Mr. Mateo Lungu, who is the finance manager here at the commission. He'll be speaking to us on the compensation fund. So one of the things that you need to know as a smart investor is that there is a compensation fund in the capital markets. So today we're going to be enlightened on what this compensation fund is about, what it does, and what are the benefits, pros and cons of this fund. So just before we start, we'll give it a few more minutes, maybe 2 more minutes to have more people log in, then we can start.
That $4 million, put it in the $30 million account.
I should have known better. I trusted someone I didn't fully understand.
Oh yeah, and that I can't wait to move into the new house.
You make me run around, and find that money and make sure that these things. Money is money.
Tell those people to get that $4 million, put it in the $30 million account.
I should have known better. I trusted someone I didn't fully understand.
Oh yeah, and that I can't wait to move into the new house.
You make me run around, and find that money and make sure that these things. Money is money.
Good afternoon once again. Welcome to today's town hall, which we hold every last Thursday of the month. My name is Talimwala Mugala. I'll be your host for today. Before we get into our town hall, as I said earlier, we are commemorating the World Investor Week as a commission and as the capital markets. And one of the activities that we are doing in this week is the National Capital Markets Debate, which we'll be hosting in Zambia. We've had a round of debates that have gone around the country where all 10 provinces have been represented. So we have 10 tertiary institutions that will be debating in Zambia. Please join us on Facebook and all other social media platforms, and also on the national television to watch how the debate pans out in Zambia and who the winners will be for the National Capital Markets Debate. We also had a series of other events within the country, within Lusaka. We had we had an exhibition which we hosted at Lewanika Mall. All this was to bring in awareness to the public about the capital markets. We also had a launch of a first ever series, WhatsApp series, which is the Money Mysteries, which we saw play earlier. We'll play it again at the end. The the trailer for that, so that you just get to know that. So once we launch this, we'll be sending it to WhatsApp groups, and everybody will be receiving this information. And you'll see different tips on how you can be a smart investor based on the themes that we have for the World Investor Week. So like I said earlier, I'll introduce my presenter for today, Mr. Mateo Lungo, who is the Finance Manager for the Securities and Exchange Commission. He'll be speaking to us today about the Compensation Fund. Mr. Lungu, you're welcome. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can get you. Thank you.
Okay. I'll allow you to share your screen and just tell us what is this compensation fund and what are the benefits for an investor. Remember, we're speaking to investors, we're encouraging them to be smart. So please take us through what the compensation fund is about. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope everyone is getting me. Good afternoon and good afternoon, participants. Today's topic is a compensation fund presented by myself. My name is Mateo Lungu. I'm the Manager Finance for the Commission from the Directorate of Finance and Administration. So today's topic is quite interesting and important in that it tries to look at how persons within the capital markets, or those that invest in the capital markets, can be compensated. So I'll begin by looking at the establishment of the compensation fund. And the compensation fund, as we may know, was established under Section 64 of the Repealed Securities Act and Cap 354 of the laws of Zambia. And this was repealed and replaced by the Securities Act number 41 of 2016, which is now under Section 176 and has continued the fund. So the fund is regulated by the Securities Compensation Fund Regulations, statutory instrument of 1993, number 162. So this is how the compensation fund is established. Then what is the compensation fund and what is the objective of the fund? So the compensation fund is a creature of statute. Under Section 177 of the Securities Act, it is provided that the compensation fund shall be held and applied for the purposes of compensating persons who suffer financial loss occasioned by default of a licensed person or an employee of a licensed person. So as we can see, the very objective or purpose of this fund is basically to compensate persons who may suffer financial loss, which is caused by default of a licensed person or an employee of a licensed person in the course or in connection with the dealing in securities. And this is in relation to the loss in money, securities, or any other properties entrusted or received by a licensed person or employee for and on behalf of a licensed person. So that is the purpose and objective of the fund. Then the management of this fund. So the compensation fund, or the fund, is a property of the Securities and Exchange Commission, and under Regulation 3 of the Securities Compensation Fund Regulations, you will notice that the assets of the funds are the property of the Commission, but must be kept separate from all other properties and must be held for the purposes set out in the regulation. What this basically means is that the Commission, in terms of preparing its financials, prepares two sets. The compensation fund, being a separate legal entity, operates on its own, and the Commission's assets and financials are kept separate from the compensation fund, which means that the compensation fund actually has got its own committee, which I will be speaking to later, or board, and has got bank accounts and assets which are attributable to the fund, separate from the Commission. And also further, Section 178 of the Securities Act, which establishes this fund, further establishes the fund committee, which is responsible basically for the management and administration of the fund and settlement of any claims that may come against the fund. So you'll see that Section 178 is actually gives details of how the fund is to be managed and administered, and how any claims arising of that fund can be settled. The governance structure of the fund is such that the minister, in this case, the Minister of Finance and National Planning, establishes the fund and sets out the condition on the application of the fund through Regulation 176. So when we look at Regulation 176, you'll see that it empowers the Minister of Finance to set terms and conditions on the application of the fund. And then in terms of how the commission appoints persons or nominates persons who sit on the fund, this is put very clearly under Section 178 of the Act, and it basically says that the commission shall nominate persons that are to sit in this committee, and the nominated persons are to come as per the section, which is 178, from the following. One, a nominee of the Bankers Association of Zambia, a nominee of an association of the capital markets players, a nominee of the ministry responsible for finance, a nominee of the Law Association of Zambia, a nominee of the Zambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and a nominee of the commission. So those are the members of the board or the compensation fund committee. Then in terms of the responsibilities and the roles of the compensation fund committee, you note that the committee is responsible for the management and administration of the compensation fund, and all settlements of the claims against the fund in accordance with Section 178 of the Act. And in managing and administering the fund, the committee has those objectives or responsibilities, which is number one, to review and approve the compensation fund investment policy proposed by the Secretariat of the Commission. So you note that one of the key issues is to look at the policy or governing documents that govern this fund. So the compensation fund committee reviews and approves the compensation fund investment policy, which is a key document that looks at how the fund of this fund, which is a compensation fund, are actually invested, then select and terminate funding options. So the committee has got power to select and terminate funding options. Currently, the funding options are through what is called the compensation levy, which comes through the payment of licenses. So you find that dealers and investment advisors are required to pay a compensation levy, and that is also by statute. And upon the recommendation of the committee is able to select and change these funding options, then evaluate the performance of the fund and make investment changes where necessary. So the committee also does the evaluation of the performance of this fund, how this fund is performing in relation to the market, and then deals with the compensation of affected investors and undertake any other function for the purposes of managing the fund. So the committee or the compensation fund committee, which is just equivalent to the board of a committee, is an independent body and autonomous. They make their own decisions, and the decisions are independent of the commission's board. And the decisions they make are actually final. Then in terms of the monies of the fund, you realize that Section 179 of the Securities Act actually has got how these monies are supposed to be looked after and applied. And monies which are paid or deposited into the fund by the dealers and investment advisors, these the dealers and the investment advisors are the ones actually who contribute to the compensation levy. So you will find that when the dealers are renewing the licenses, let's say a bank is a dealer, like we are getting into 2025, they will be required to pay a license fee to operate as a dealer. But in addition to that, they will be required to pay a compensation levy. And such monies are recovered by or on behalf of the fund in the exercise of the right of action conferred by the Act. Then also interest and profits accruing from the investments made are also attributed to the fund. So when the dealers are making these license fees, the compensation levy is separated. The license fee remains with the commission and remains in the commission's bank account, but the compensation levy goes straight to the compensation fund account. And this is the money which is invested and is dealt with in accordance with the committee's determinations, and monies which are lawfully paid into the fund. So all such monies which are lawfully and can be attributed to the compensation fund or the fund itself are accounted for in accordance with Section 179. Authorized investment instruments. So the fund is governed by statute, as earlier alluded to, and in accordance with Regulation 6, which provides that any monies in the fund that are not immediately required for its purposes, these are normally invested in a manner in which the trustees are, for the time being, authorized by law to invest trust funds. So these funds are held actually as trust funds. And you may be aware, just like in insurance or anywhere else where trust funds are invested, the committee in the same spirit are required by law to prudently manage these investments within the authorized investment instruments. Then the investments in derivatives and hedge funds or any other speculative investments are not allowed, as these are trust funds. Investments which could be speculative are not really encouraged, or let me just say are not allowed. And the primary consideration for investment destination is actually the local market. And in most cases, this local market refers to the bonds, the shares, and the unit trusts. And any excess funds may be invested offshore, as may be provided by disbursements from the compensation fund. Section 180 of the Act establishes the pecking order for the fund's disbursement, as the compensation fund committees considers a fair and just in the circumstances. So you note that in accordance with Section 180, a pecking order is how or is an order of how the amounts which are claimed in the compensation are to be done. They are those 7 pecking order sequence that have to be followed. So the first one is that the amount of claims of the compensation, including costs allowed by the compensation fund and committee. So someone would make a claim on the compensation fund that will include all costs which are allowed by the compensation fund committee. Then 2 will be their legal and other expenses which may be incurred during investing and defending claims for the compensation fund, which are made in terms of exercise by the committee of their rights. Then 3 or C, premiums payable in respect of contracts of insurance or indemnity entered into by the compensation fund committee. Then D, the expenses incurred or involved in the administration of the fund. Then the insolvency, bankruptcy, or negligence costs resulting from an action of the licensed person. Then the defalcation committed in terms of the Act. Defalcation basically refers to misapplication of trust funds or not holding the trust funds in line with the purpose for which the trust funds have been set up. Then other monies payable out of the fund as well as prescribed by the minister. So that is a pecking order which the law establishes under Section 180 of how disbursements from the compensation fund are to be made. Then claims against a licensee. So what happens in this case is that whenever there is a claim of loss in line with the pecking order and how the claims are to be done, a licensee is required to take out insurance against the liabilities that may arise from the negligence or default of the licensed persons. And what this means is, let's say a bank is a licensed entity by the commission, it's a dealer. It's expected that in their dealing, they have to take out indemnity insurance, which is proportionate to the risk that they are taking. So this is the first line of defense. So if we are dealing with a bank and the bank is dealing in securities, it is expected that the bank will take out adequate cover of insurance just in case of any default that may arise as a result of negligence or default of this licensed person, or indeed the employees of a licensed person, and in addition to contributing towards the compensation fund. So when the claim cannot be satisfied from a licensed person, then a claim has to be taken pursuant to the provision of the Act on the fund, which is the compensation fund. So a claim on the compensation fund can only be made if the compensation payable by the licensee under insurance is insufficient to mitigate the default. Now, this is very important and critical in the sense that the compensation fund is not the first line of defense. It is expected that dealers and investment advisors to which these claims may be made first have to be sufficiently covered through insurance so that investors who suffer such losses may claim from there. But if all fails and actually proof has to be made that efforts have been made and you failed to recover from the dealers, then claims against the compensation fund. So how are then claims made against this fund? Remember, the first claim has to be made against the licensee, and the licensee is expected to take out adequate insurance. So the claims against the compensation fund are under Regulation 9 of the Securities Compensation Regulations, which gives the committee discretion to publish a notice in a daily newspaper circulating generally in Zambia. So you'll find that once this claim is made against the compensation fund, Regulation 9 gives the committee discretion to publish in a daily newspaper of what has happened, and the notice shall be in a prescribed form and specifies a date not being earlier than 3 months after the said publication, or on which the claims for compensation from the fund in relation to the persons specified in the notice may be made. So what this basically means is that once this notice is issued, at least it can't be earlier than the 3 months after the publication. And then a claim for the compensation shall be made in writing to the commission or the committee. Obviously, you write to the commission, and then the commission takes it to the committee, or directly to the chairperson of the committee on or before the specified date in the notice where the notice has been published, like we saw in the area case, or within 6 months from the date a claimant became aware of the default where no notice was published. So if there was no notice which was published and the claimant became aware of default, it actually has to be at least within 6 months. Then a claim not compliant with these timeframes is bad unless the committee determines otherwise. So if the timelines which have been set above the 6 months from the date a claimant becomes aware, or not earlier than the 3 months when the publication is made. A claim has to be compliant with those timelines in order for the committee to sustain that. Otherwise, if it is not, the committee will have to determine, and the committee is protection from being sued or publishing a notice in good faith. Then power of the committee in respect of a claim. So when a claim is made, the committee, like I've said, is an autonomous body lawfully constituted by the Act, and the committee has to be satisfied that a claim for compensation under the regulation cited in the previous slide is a proper claim, meaning that the claim has satisfied the timelines and all the parameters set, and it shall make a determination allowing the claim. Now, if the committee is not satisfied as to the appropriateness of the claim for compensation, it shall make a determination disallowing the claim, or if satisfied as to the propriety of the part of such a claim, it shall make a determination allowing a claim as to that part. So the committee has to be satisfied that the claim is legitimate and it has to be paid in line with the regulations from the compensation fund. Then the power in respect of the claim under Rule 11 of the Securities Act provides that a person aggrieved by the decision of the committee may actually appeal to the High Court within 3 months. So there is a recourse to where the committee determines a matter and the party is aggrieved. There is recourse, and that recourse is to appeal to the High Court within 3 months of such a decision being made. And the total amount that shall be claimed against the compensation fund is set out in section 182 of the Act, which provides for the minister to prescribe the liability of the fund, where a licensed person is in default on contribution payments to the fund. Now, under Rule 7 of the Securities Compensation Regulations, it provides the total amount that can be paid as compensation, and this may be paid out of the fund under the regulations to all persons who suffer loss by a licensee. And this is represented or representative of a director or employee thereof. And this shall not exceed that a licensee the sum of 1 million kwacha, which is in 1,000 kwacha rebased, meaning that at the time the law was framed, it was framed when, if you read the law, you will find actually there is 1 million kwacha, but now if you read the law, you will find actually there is 1 million the licensees are taking up, or how the investments are currently sitting. Then the total amount again continues. The total amount shall cover all claims arising out of that default, and also all claims arising out of the area default by the licensee which have not been subject of the determination under Regulation 13. So, notwithstanding all this, the total amount to be applied shall not in any case of any default exceed more than 50% of the maximum stated amount, or above the 1,000 kwacha. So we have to really appreciate that the minister, maybe by order, direct the committee to increase the amount which shall be applied from the fund in respect of a particular licensee to persons who suffer loss through default of that particular licensee or representative thereof. But the total amount so applied shall not in any case exceed more than 50% of the maximum amount stated which is a 1,000 kwacha or 1 million and rebased. Benefit of the fund to the investors. So number one is a protection against losses. So as investors invest, it is possible that they may suffer loss as a result of the investments that they have made. So the compensation fund provides financial compensation to eligible investors who suffer losses due to licensed intermediaries' insolvency, bankruptcy, or misconduct. So that's one of the biggest benefits. Then enhanced investor confidence. The fund offers a reassurance, encouraging investors to participate in the capital markets, such that if there was loss by any of those, such as insolvency, bankruptcy, or misconduct, there is some recourse that can fall on. Then risk mitigation, it helps manage investment risks by providing a safety net. Then access to compensation in an event of default by a licensed person. So like indicated earlier, all these benefits are there, but before they could be actualized, we actually have to look at the licensed person taking out that insurance, and all those are measures to mitigate loss that may be suffered by the investing public. So therefore, in summary, the compensation fund safeguards investors and promotes a stable investment environment in Zambia. So which means that the compensation fund, the main role and purpose is to ensure that investors' investments are safeguarded and the promotion of a stable investment environment is created. I wish also to state here that this fund currently, in terms of the compensation levy, because of the requirement by the law to by the licensed dealers and investment advisors to take out insurance, the amount that is being charged as a compensation levy is actually not much. It is not much in the sense that it is just 3,333, which means that if this is the major source of income for the fund, then the fund size hasn't grown that much. And currently, from the last audited position, our fund, the fund size is 5.2 million, and this is where the fund is seated. The Commission's desire and the Compensation Committee's desire that this fund should grow to levels where if huge losses were recorded, it's able to handle. Having said that, I think we can take any questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mateo, for that very insightful presentation. I'm sure a lot of people have learned a lot. And for our investors out there, if you're hearing this for the first time, this is very good information and good news that you've gotten to hear this. We'll take some questions as indicated by Mr. Mateo. If you have any question, please just put up your hand. We'll be able to give you an opportunity to speak. Sichone, could you please enable Mrs. Sichone to speak? You can go ahead. You can unmute your mic, Mr. Sichone, and make your comment.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. I just also wanted to bring to everyone's attention that we're currently going through some reforms, legislative reforms, where we are in the process of reviewing the thresholds that Mateo spoke to, of the 1,000 and the maximum of 1,500 that has been set by the minister. Because if you look at the date of these regulations, they are 1993 regulations, so they're very, very old. And therefore, we have for a number of months now, been in the process of updating the regulations so that they're more reflective of prices today. 30 years ago, 1 million kwacha was quite a substantial amount of money, and therefore we would like a claim to be able to make sense when a person comes to claim to the compensation fund. So 1,000 is quite insignificant, and therefore we are working with the Ministries of Finance and Justice to be able to review the regulatory framework. We've already completed the stakeholder consultations, and we are in the tail end of the process where we're working with the Ministry of Justice just to finalize the regulations. So in a few months' time, we'll be coming up with updated regulations that show a higher figure for claims purposes. I just thought I'd add to the conversation on that point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Nsichwane, for that. It's well noted. Any other questions? We do have a comment in the comment section. Wisdom Simwila Kalunga, your comment is not very clear. It just says WhatsApp group for the same. Kindly share the same. So I'm not sure what. Maybe if you could rephrase that. Then we have a question from Ruben Mulungu. He's asking, so the limit for the claim is 1,000 kwacha. Mr. Mateo, could you confirm that?
Yes, the limit is 1,000 kwacha, and I think that's what Mrs. Chwane was alluding to just a while ago. That efforts have been made to try and look at the claim. Obviously, it was done at a time when it was 1 million kwacha, and that time around 93, 94, it was quite a lot of money. But unfortunately, it's now rebased and it's in the law. So that's the amount that is the maximum for now.
Okay.
Sitali, maybe just to add that if you heard what Mateo presented, he said that that is the second line of claim. So you start with the licensee. So the licensee does not have a similar very low limit. If they take out insurance, they should be able to give you something that mitigates the loss that you incur. So you start with the licensee only when you are dissatisfied with the amount that you get and it's not able to mitigate your loss. That is when you now come to the fund. You should come with proof that you did claim from the licensee through their insurance and that amount was insufficient to cover your loss. So in a way, the 1,000 is not the only money that you are able to obtain from a default event. You have to start with your licensee, after which you then come to the compensation fund. Thank you.
Okay, that's well noted. Thank you. Okay, we have another question. Would it be a good idea to make it a prerequisite for the license application process that the capital markets form takes out professional indemnity cover and director's liability insurance? These are both available in Zambia. This is from Mr. Ben Carter. Okay, so that sounds like a suggestion. I'm sure we've taken note, Mr. Mateo, Mr. Nsichwane. Then we have
actually, Sitali, the requirement under the law is that insurance should be taken out. So it's the commission does not prescribe the quantum because the licensee determines the risk that it takes out in terms of how much risk it's taking from the persons that it's doing business with. So in the event of a default, the insurance that would have been taken out should be sufficient to cover all those risk events. So it's the licensee's duty, sitting down with the insurance company to be able to determine how much is sufficient to take out as insurance, as indemnity insurance. So that is something that even the commission is monitoring to ensure that there's compliance with this requirement of the law. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Carter. I'm sure that's clear. Then we have another one from Mr. Kalunga. He says, my question was regarding the WhatsApp group where updates and also the movie on financial practices are explained as stated at the beginning of the lesson.
Yeah,
Okay.
hello, sir. Okay, yeah, not quite clear. Is it a WhatsApp group or?
It's also not very clear. Mr. Kalunga, maybe you could just raise your hand so that you can speak and tell us what the question is, because we are not clear from our end. Sitrone, please allow Mr. Kalunga to speak. He's raised his hand.
Am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so my first question is, I'm trying to, because I'm an individual investor, that means I just invest using my broker. So is the compensation fund literally for the brokers themselves? It does not involve individual investors on the capital market, but the banks and licensed individuals who carry out the investment processes for compensation sake, is it?
Mr. Mateo.
Thank you, Stari. Thank you, Mr. Kalunga. So the way the compensation is set up is such that it is the dealers and the investment advisors that pay the compensation fund levy, and those licensed entities, which include the brokers. For example, if you've invested through the brokers, because brokers are also licensed as broker dealers, and as such, they too pay that compensation fund. And the processes, let's say you suffered loss as a result of maybe bankruptcy or any of those reasons that were cited, it's expected that through them taking out insurance first as a first line, you should be compensated. And if all that fails, then the second line is a compensation fund, where you can make a claim in line with the prescribed format and rules. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mateo. Mr. Kalunga, I hope that is clear and I hope it answers your question. If you've just joined us, we're discussing the compensation fund for the SEC, and we are also live on Facebook. If you've got any comments or questions, please feel free to comment there as well. Any more questions? Tichane, could you check for us if you've got any reactions from Facebook? Okay, so we have a question from Mr. Webster Sikazwe. Are the losses suffered by investors in a fund which has been placed under administration, e.g. Madison, by SEC covered under the compensation fund? Are the losses suffered by investors in a fund which has been placed under administration, for example, Madison, by SEC covered under the compensation fund? Mr. Mateo?
Okay, thank you. I'll comment and then Mrs. Chone would also come in. Yeah, so they are covered in the sense that Madison is a licensed dealer, and in their license, they do pay the compensation fund levy. So accept the issue with Madison, it's under some supervisory possession, and the insurance part of it may not have been adequate, and that's one of the reasons why the commission had to take such an action against them. So which means is that the total amount per claim per dealer still remains 1,000, which is not commensurate to maybe the liability that currently is seated at Madison. Thinking the allowance is Johnny to add. Thank you.
Yes, I think Mateo has well or ably answered that question, because notwithstanding that Madison Mamco being a licensed dealer and having contributed to the compensation fund, so persons that suffer default as the result of Madison or Mamco's actions are subject to the same rules. So currently, if a claim had to be made to the fund for that entire default, only 1,000 or a maximum of 1,500, where the minister directs the committee to increase the amount by 50%. So the maximum that can be claimable from the compensation fund currently under the existing framework is only 1,500 kwacha. So that is the only limitation, and that is why the Commission, using its a mandate of investor protection, has been doing everything in its power to ensure that the interests of the creditors are well taken care of by the various actions that it has taken over the years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sichoni. Any other questions? This is a very interesting topic. I would advise us to ask as many questions as possible so that we are clear. Sichoni, any reactions from our Facebook? Okay, oh, I've seen one. Okay, it's just a reaction, just saying that the discussion is very insightful and they are learning. We have a hand from Margaret Peary. Please go ahead and ask your question or make your contribution. Any other questions? I don't see any.
Hello, good afternoon.
Okay. Yes, good afternoon. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to find out from where you are aggrieved, and you indicated that with the licensee in this case, and I think the matter has been escalated, say to in this case, I think to the Bank of Zambia. How does the complainant then correspond to with the commission? Are we writing directly to you or through, for instance, in this case, would be sent to you, or this question is to Mrs. Shone and the team. Do we write directly to you? How is the procedure to get in touch with you to levy your complaint? Thank
you. Thank you,
If I heard your question correctly, through you, Steli, if I heard the question correctly, where you have a grievance with a licensee and you'd like to escalate it to the regulator, what do you do? Is that your question?
So the regulator is informed, and would like to then escalate the matter further. Is that when you come in, or as the committee, or is it you wait for? I don't know. What is the process? How do you escalate these issues?
So by escalation, I presume you've suffered a loss, isn't it? And you'd like, at the hands of the licensee. So what you need to do is that you need to start the process of claiming from the licensee through their insurance. So you have to contact the licensee, and the licensee then has to start the claim process with the insurance company, and they have to, once that process starts, then if you are not satisfied with the monies or the amount that is given to you after that process, then that is when you can come to the compensation fund, because you can't come directly to the compensation fund without satisfying the processes of insurance with your licensee, because that's a prerequisite for coming to the compensation fund. I hope that that is clear.
All right, thank you. And to the compensation fund, in writing, or is there online? How is the process there?
Matteo had stated in his presentation that claims to the fund have to be in writing. So at the moment, the Secretariat is the commission itself. So you write to the commission. If you go to our website, and I'm sure the members of the team on the call will be able to share some of our contact details. You can contact us in several ways, by telephone, by email, but it has to be in writing. So you will send in your claim to the compensation fund in writing, and then the other processes will follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sichoni. We have another hand. I saw a hand from, oh, it has disappeared. Inambao, I think. Do you still want to ask your question? Or any other questions? Vanessa Kasoka is asking what is the name of our channel or page. So the channel that you're receiving, you're hearing us on right now is our town hall, our monthly town hall meeting, and we'll post our Facebook page in the chat, as well as our website for further information. Then we have a question saying, is there a company withdrew from stock exchange list? If the company withdraw from stock exchange list, do they give you back the money? Do they give back the money to the shareholders? If the company withdraws from the stock exchange list, do they give you back the money to the shareholders? This is from Paul Ngoma. Or I think you can go ahead and raise your hand and just state your question in case I've gotten it wrong. But that's the question from Mr. Ngoma. Then we have another question also. If the fund is already operating, is the fund already operating? If so, should the claim get to insurance claim stage, what parameters will be used since the 1,000 is being reviewed? Maybe we can tackle those two.
Maybe I can attempt, and then if anyone else would like to add. I'll start with a question from Mr. Ngoma. I presume what he's asking is about the deregistration of an entity from the delisting and deregistration of an entity, where you delist from an exchange and you deregister from the commission. The law requires that the majority or the majority shareholder buys you off. So that process is called a mandatory offer. So they will be required to undertake a mandatory offer where they offer every minority in that company. And it's not a mandatory sale. So you have a decision to stay. But then because the company is ceasing to be subject to regulatory oversight, your interest as a minority shareholder are not necessarily protected by the commission, because that company will cease to be subject to regulatory oversight. So you have to consider your options, look at the price that is being offered to you, and then it's up to you to make a decision whether or not you accept that offer or not. So you have to speak to your broker or investment advisor for advice. It's very important for you to do that to make a decision. The commission will not make those decisions on behalf of investors. So I hope that was what the question was about, because I'm not sure what withdraw from stock exchange list meant. So I paraphrased it to what actually pertains in the capital markets. Then whether or not the fund, the anonymous attendee who asked the question on whether the fund is already operating, it has been in operation from 1993. So we have had the compensation fund from 1993. In 2016, its establishment was continued under the New Securities Act. And therefore, if you want to make a claim against the compensation fund, the amount that can be claimable, the maximum is 1,000 or 1,500, and that is subject to you having satisfied the insurance claim at the first instance with the licensee that you're dealing with. So this amount will only, the reviewed amount that we spoke about earlier, that the Ministry of Justice is looking at, will only kick in at the point that those regulations come into force. There's no retrospective application, and therefore only defaults that happen after that date when those regulations come into force will be subject to the increased amount. So anything that happens or any default that takes place before the regulations are amended will be subject to this limit of 1,000 or 1,500. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sichoni. Pauline Inambao asked that the last caller, this last person who spoke, who sent a question rather, was talking about a claim process made reference to boards as the body one has invested in, meaning they've invested in, for example, government bonds. I did not hear the answer clearly because with boards investments and the defaults thereof. So Pauline says she didn't get your response concerning investments in default in investments such as bonds.
I think if you're talking about a default with the government paper, the relevant institution that you need to be speaking to is a central bank. I'm not sure how the Bank of Zambia is coming in this question. Maybe if you could clarify your question with respect to capital markets, because when you've made an investment in government paper, in a government bond, for instance, and there's a default, then the relevant institution to speak to is the central bank. Unless I have understood your question, because I'm not really seeing the correlation with capital markets and the question that has been asked.
Yeah. Pauline, maybe you could just unmute your mic and state your question to be a bit more clear. Are you referring to the trading in the secondary market of the bond, or what exactly, so that we can respond clearly? Pauline, you can unmute your mic and ask your question. Okay, while we wait for that one, we've got another question. We can take our last two questions as we are almost out of time. Who adjudicates between what is misconduct as opposed to investment risk suffered by the investor? That's question one. Question two, any statistics of how much has been paid from the fund so far? So the first one says, who adjudicates, between what is misconduct as opposed to investment risk suffered by the investor? Then what are the statistics of what has been paid out so far from the fund? This is from Mr. Webster Skazwe.
Okay, thank you, Farid. I'll do the second question, and Sistrana will help with the first one. So in terms of the statistics of how much so far has been paid from the compensation fund, there has been no claim so far on the compensation fund, meaning that nobody has come forth to claim or written to the committee in line with what we discussed in terms of how to go about when you're wishing to claim. So the fund, like I indicated, the fund size, currently we are around 5.2 million. That is from inception, and no claim has thus far been made. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Sichone, would like to add to that?
So the question on who determines what misconduct is as opposed to investment risk. So we do have first of all the compensation fund committee itself is mandated to consider the claim, and as part of its procedures, it has to consider the claim. It has to look at the default event and whether it satisfies the criteria of being a misconduct. The Securities Act also defines what misconduct is for purposes of instigating a claim against a licensee. So market misconduct is also defined in the Securities Act. If you go to our website, you'll be able to find our act, and you can be able to find the definition of what misconduct is. If there's a dispute on what misconduct is and whether it's supposed to be treated as investment risk on the other hand, then the matter is subject to appeal to the Capital Markets Tribunal. So under the new regulations that are being revised, that will be made more clear that where there's a dispute subject to a claim, then and where you can appeal to, you can go to the Capital Markets Tribunal. So in the first instance, the committee itself will make a determination. But where you're not satisfied with the determination made by the committee, then you can appeal to the tribunal. But the Act gives guidance on what misconduct is. Thank you, Stan.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Sichone. We have come to the end of our town hall today. It has been a very, very interesting discussion. I've learned a lot. I'm sure everybody out there has also learned a lot. This is wonderful information that we as investors can work with. Unless we have any other questions, we can close today's town hall. Just to thank everybody for actively participating. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to our Facebook followers that have been following us, and thank you to everyone that took part in the town hall. And thank you to Mr. Mateo and Mrs. Sichone for the presentation for today. We look forward to meeting with you in the next town hall, which is at the end of November. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
To invest wisely and welcome to the World Investor Week 2024, a global campaign dedicated to enhancing investor education and protecting those who invest in capital markets. This year, we explore the evolving world of finance, starting with digital technology, how it shapes the way we invest, trade, and access financial services. At the SEC, we are committed to equipping you with the knowledge to invest wisely and steer clear of scams. In today's fast-paced financial landscape, fraudsters use increasingly sophisticated tactics to deceive unsuspecting investors. And as we look towards a sustainable future, we focus on investments that matter. Those that are not only profitable but also have a positive impact on society and the environment. Here in Zambia, World Investor Week is more than just a campaign. It's a movement to build a future where every citizen understands the value of smart investing through initiatives such as community engagements, the Capital Markets Ambassador Program, the National Capital Markets Debate, which has representation of schools from all 10 provinces, as well as the essay writing competition. As the SEC, we are reaching out to the next generation, empowering young Zambians to be the financial leaders of tomorrow. This year, we are proud to launch Money Mysteries, Zambia's first ever WhatsApp series. Through engaging stories, we aim to unravel the mysteries of money management, investment strategies, and fraud prevention right at your fingertips. In collaboration with our partners, we remain committed to fostering a secure and transparent investment environment for all Zambians. Together, let's celebrate World Investor Week 2024 and take a step towards a more informed, secure, and prosperous future. Be a smart investor, today, tomorrow, and always. Welcome to the World Investor Week 2024, a global campaign dedicated to enhancing investor education and protecting those who invest in capital markets. This year, we explore the evolving world of finance, starting with digital technology, how it shapes the way we invest, trade, and access financial services. At the SEC, we are committed to equipping you with the knowledge to invest wisely and steer clear of scams. In today's fast-paced financial landscape, fraudsters use increasingly sophisticated tactics to deceive unsuspecting investors. And as we look towards a sustainable future, we focus on investments that matter. Those that are not only profitable but also have a positive impact on society and the environment. Here in Zambia, World Investor Week is more than just a campaign. It's a movement to build a future where every citizen understands the value of smart investing through initiatives such as community engagements, the Capital Markets Ambassador Program, the National Capital Markets Debate, which has representation of schools from all 10 provinces, as well as the essay writing competition. As the SEC, we are reaching out to the next generation, empowering young Zambians to be the financial leaders of tomorrow. This year, we are proud to launch Money Mysteries, Zambia's first ever WhatsApp series. Through engaging stories, we aim to unravel the mysteries of money management, investment strategies, and fraud prevention right at your fingertips. In collaboration with our partners, we remain committed to fostering a secure and transparent investment environment for all Zambians. Together, let's celebrate World Investor Week 2024 and take a step towards a more informed, secure, and prosperous future. Be a smart investor, today, tomorrow, and always.